working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.
And I welcome you to Working for You, the weekly government program where you can receive information in terms of what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to the government. I am your host, Roy Williams. Today we are going to be having a very lively discussion on exercise Tradewinds 2018, which takes place in the Federation sometime later this year. I have with me Captain Coyote Sutton of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defence Force, and who is the chair of the local organizing committee for Exercise Tradewinds 2018. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I also have with me Mrs. Claricia Langley Stevens, who is the deputy chair with responsibility for human disaster response management. Welcome, Mrs. Langley Stevens.
Thank you.
Okay. We are going to be discussing, of course, Tradewinds or Exercise Tradewinds is about national security, regional security, and so on. And these are some of the issues that we will be discussing today, and about disaster relief and humanitarian assistance and all of that. Now, what I want you to tell me is who makes up the local organizing committee for Exercise Tradewinds 2018?
Okay, the local organizing committee for Exercise Tradewinds 2018 encompasses a number of entities within St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, the lead agency is the St. Kitts and Nevis Defence Force. We have the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. We have the St. Kitts Nevis Fire Services. We have NEMA. We have Custom and Excise Department, the Immigration Department. We have SCASPA, that is the St. Christopher Air and Seaport Authority. SKNIS for communication purposes. We have Ministry of Health and the National Disaster Management Department or NEVIS, and Ministry of Culture, of course, because we're going to be obviously busy training, trying to enhance the security capabilities within the country, as well as the disaster response. But we will not forget to have some fun and show the hospitality and the culture of Kittitians and Nevisians to our guests at the end of it.
So how long has the local organizing committee been meeting to plan or to organize Exercise Tradewinds 2018?
Planning for Exercise Tradewinds normally commences the year before the actual exercise. So the planning started last year, and the local organizing committee has been meeting as late as last year. Frequently every 2 weeks, sometimes monthly, depending on the assignments that the different subcommittees within the committee have to take care of. So we meet to discuss the way forward. Within the local organizing committee, we have subcommittees for communication, we have a subcommittee for budget, social events, but name it. So
Sure.
All the different activities, logistic support and all that, because we're going to be receiving in excess of 500 troops and the supporting staff for exercise Tradewinds. So we have to make sure that all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted for the preparations for the exercise. So the committee has been doing a tremendous work in the background, and everything is in place, and we are moving right forward towards the execution of the exercise. We have the final planning conference for exercise Tradewinds, which will be held on St. Kitts this month, actually from Monday until Friday next week. That's from April 16th to the 20th. And interestingly, some of the key persons from US Outcome are going to be arriving this afternoon to start preparing for the...
Sure. Now, the last time Tradewinds took place in St. Kitts was in 2015.
Yes.
And they're back here so soon, which is not, sort of the normal practice.
Yes.
Why is that so?
Well, we are small. We are the smallest nation in the Western Hemisphere, but we are big, we are large, we are aggressive, and we do the very best. We set standards. 2015 Tradewinds was just that, pure success, and hence the US outcome is back here. Tradewinds 2015 was such a success. Actually, we introduced new portfolios and new entities to the exercise to enhance the exercise, and since then every other country that has hosted Tradewinds, that's in 2016 and 2017, they had to try to meet the standard that we set in 2015. So it is not surprising that St. Kitts is hosting it again.
Okay.
So soon. Yeah.
Now, it is my understanding that Tradewinds was conceptualized in the mid-1980s by Caribbean heads of government on the advice of their respective national security chiefs. Now, I suppose that tied to that, you would have the objectives and the aims of Tradewinds. Could you tell us what exactly is exercise Tradewinds, and give us some rationale for hosting this every year?
Okay. Exercise Tradewinds is a U.S. government, United States Southern Command sponsored exercise, which is approved by the chairman of Joint Chief of Staffs, that is in the United States. Pretty much the overarching aim for Tradewinds is to improve the cooperation and interoperability of partner nations in responding to security threats and disasters in accordance with local laws and regional treaties on security assistance, such as the Caribbean Security Basin Initiative. And pretty much that is just it. Now, we do this every year so as to refresh the skill sets, the attention to details, and also to learn best practices, from all the other forces, and improve on our SOPs and so on. While we're doing this, we are also developing our national capabilities. Okay, so hence, because of that, we, this year's Tradewinds, we have the theme capacity development through integrated training and exercise to confront national security challenges of the 21st century. That is the theme that we chose for this year's Tradewinds.
Okay.
Tradewinds Phase 1 is going to be held in St. Kitts, and precisely that, what the theme says, is what we hope to achieve. Everything in the theme encompasses the national objectives and all the goals that we set. So we're definitely going to realize that.
Okay, and that date is?
Tradewinds will commence.
Phase 1.
Phase 1 will commence.
Phase 2 in the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Phase 1 will commence from the 4th to the 12th of June. However, the advanced party for the exercise will come to St. Kitts probably late May, getting prepared, setting up. But the opening ceremony is going to be on the 4th of June, and the closing ceremony is going to be on the 12th of June, 2018. In between, we'll do all the training, and in between, we have real-life exercises that will be involved.
Sure. Now, Mrs. Langley Stevens, I know that the training is also focused on, or to help the participants involved in the exercise, how to better respond to natural disasters. And that is basically where you come in. The humanitarian aspect of the whole thing is the human disaster response management, of which you have experience in. Could you elaborate a little bit on your role as part of this exercise?
Thank you. Exercise Tradewinds, as it relates to the humanitarian disaster response component, actually started in 1995, and it was as a result of Tradewinds coming to St. Kitts and Nevis why NEMA, the agency, was formed. And one of the things that we find interesting is that though it is a military-based exercise, there's a very strong support for HADR, and that is something that we believe is something that helps us in capacity development, as the overarching theme suggests. I have participated in Exercise Tradewinds since 2015 in the planning and execution phases, and I believe that it lends itself to being able to help NEMA as an agency and the government by extension to identify some of the strengths and weaknesses that our national disaster plan may have, while at the same time building capacity within the agency itself and by extension via our stakeholders. Now, the exercise is not a fictional exercise. We, the organizers, are able to design scenarios that would in reality affect us, therefore giving us the opportunity outside of an actual event to be able to test our response times and mechanisms. And I think when we design these exercises, we use real hazards, or the hazards that we are vulnerable to as a country. And so, for example, this year our focus is going to be on the hazards earthquake and tsunami, as the case may be. And at the same time, we also saw an opportunity to partner with the Air and Seaports Authority in testing some aspects of their own emergency response plan, as the case may be, having that level of responsibility to the international community. And so we are going to be working with them also on St. Kitts and on Nevis. Nevis has given priority to the tourism sector to be able to work with tour operators in terms of realizing any eventualities that can happen while they're executing the duties, and how we would be able to respond as disaster offices in terms of assisting with evacuation or anything of that sort.
Okay. Now, Captain Coyote, the training exercise also focuses, as you clearly indicated earlier, on land and maritime threats. What are some of the land and maritime threats that the exercise would be tailored in terms of how to respond to these land and maritime threats?
Okay.
Specifically, what are some of them?
Okay, we live in the Caribbean region. Obviously, we are susceptible to threats from the sea, mainly. And the threat that is prominent in the Caribbean is narcotic trafficking, human trafficking, proliferation of small arms and ammunition and drugs and things like that. So basically, that is going to be the scope where we'll be focusing on. We have put everything together to, and it's under the title Counter Threat Network, because the criminal elements do not operate in isolation. It's a network, and they're well organized. So we are going to be training and learning from others and exercising as well to see the best practices that we can employ to deal with these emerging threats, because they're getting more sophisticated as the day goes by. So if you, for example, in the Caribbean, lately in the last couple of years, they discovered that drugs is not only being transported by go-fast vessels, which was the traditional way, but now people are employing submarines, submerged crafts. So you have to be on top of your game to be able to counter it, because we are very small communities, and any little destabilization that rocks the security of any of the Caribbean nations affects the whole of the region.
Now, I suppose that the Caribbean becomes very important because of its geographical location. Close to the United States, the Caribbean basin, and the Atlantic Ocean, and so on. We have open seas, we have open borders. Now, this must pose quite a challenge to be able to police those seas and those borders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, just like yes, like you rightly mentioned, you see, when threats or disasters hit, say, any country or any community, there is no preference or priority in the occurrence sequence. During the hurricane, what we notice is a lot of looting that people want to do. So you have to have presence out there. And landfall or the hurricane, what do you do to prepare yourself? What do you do to sensitize the public so that you can try to curb certain things from happening? So, and there are times that where you have everything happening all together, you think that you have something under control, then you feel the tremor. And our job description is not strictly to security. We have to support NEMA. NEMA does not have staff to carry out their responsibilities. They rely on us. So everything is interrelated, and that's why I mentioned the word interoperability, which means that everybody is kind of connected. And once you start to operate and you start to develop SOPs, you start to analyze from other people's experiences, the larger forces, the United States, Canada, England, and all that. They've been through some of these things before. Now, they express to us or share their experiences and how they've been able to evolve. Selecting the best practices to make it their SOP. Then we also learn from that. Now, maybe the experiences cannot fit into our situation, wholesome, but we pick and choose and see what fits, what can work good for us, because we don't have the resources that those big countries have. But we want to also live up to our mandate to ensure that the country is safe. The communities that we serve can rely on us, that they have the agencies out there that will protect them, that will work for them when these security challenges or disasters hit.
Okay, so you mentioned, but just for the, so people can know, what are some of the partner nations and the participants in this exercise?
Okay. We should be having about 26 countries that will be participating. The numbers could go up or come down, but typically the United States forces will be here. You have the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Air Force, the National Guard, the Army. They're all going to be here. And you also have some civilian contractors who are experts in their field. They're all going to be here. So you have the United States, you have Canada, you have France. I think Netherlands might come in. Mexico is going to be here. Colombia might be an observer. It was mentioned that Australia had expressed interest in wanting to be an observer. We don't know if they're going to come through. And all the Caribbean islands, states are going to be here, including Haiti. They're all going to be here, and they're all going to have participants on the exercise for the 2 phases. So they're going to train here, we're going to train them, and then send them off to the Bahamas. Now the main focus of the exercise here, like I mentioned earlier, is to counter threat network. So it's basically, coming to speaking layman terms, it's going to be internal security focus, because we are concerned about our internal security, and that is what we'll be focusing on. So all the exercises are going to be geared towards that, enhancing that internal security capabilities within St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right. Now, Mrs. Langley Stevens, in terms of, we're talking about ensuring regional security, and disasters threaten security. Let's face it.
Of course.
Could you tell us how?
So I'm very happy that you said that, because one of the major stakeholders partnering with the US Southcom for Exercise Tradewinds, and has been doing so over the years, is our parent organization, CDIMA, based in Barbados. And they're supported by Impacts and RSS. And so disaster management has that level of support coming from the regional level to be able to realize some of our objectives. And our objectives are very realistic and very simple. One of which is to test interagency coordination and our ability to respond to whether it is a natural hazard or a man-made disaster. In this case, for this year, like I said, the natural hazard would be earthquake with the threat of a tsunami. And that allows for NEMA to test our standard operating procedures that are very new and was developed last year. And so we are going to be working very closely with police telecoms and Nevis to be able to see what would happen in the event that a tsunami really does threaten St. Kitts and Nevis, and the level of response. And there have been a lot of training and exercising leading up to Exercise Tradewinds. As late as mid-month last month, NEMA was able to engage the private sector in testing their own internal response mechanisms and response times of our first responders to see if NEMA did make the call to say that a tsunami is threatening St. Kitts and Nevis, what will you do? And we tested the entire industrial site, partnering with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. That exercise was a tremendous success. And I say that not because everybody did what NEMA expected of them, but it identified the areas that need some urgent and special attention in terms of ensuring that level of readiness. And so as we prepare for Tradewinds to me is the climax of what we are trying to realize in disaster management, because our preparation periods leading up to the actual exercise is what really, bears the brunt of it. In addition to our other training objectives, we also use the opportunity to test our communication strategies that we have, and we do it internal, we do it within country with our stakeholders and partners, and then we also test inter-island between St. Kitts and Nevis to see if we can talk to each other with the use of technology and without technology, because if a natural hazard affects us, sometimes one of the first things that we lose is access to technology, and so we don't design the exercise scenario to be heavily dependent on technology. Our training audience continues to be our regular partners and stakeholders as well as institutions. And so this year we're going to be partnering with Ross University as an existing community to be able to work with the agency to test not only our own operations but theirs as well. And we're going to be working, I said, with Air and Seaports Authority to test particularly some aspects of their response plans at the airport. And so that gives us, a good scope.
Okay. Now, Captain Coyote,
Yes, sir.
the phase 1 is in St. Kitts and phase 2 is in the Bahamas. Now, phase 1, the exercises that will be carried out in phase 1, are they different to what will be done in terms of phase 2?
Okay. The aim and the sole purpose of phase 1 is we're going to train people. Now, let me back up. The troops that are going to be participating in Tradewinds exercise, phase 1 and phase 2, are not new to their unit. They already have done their basic level training. They have like their infantryman skills. They have their weapon proficiency tests already concluded and up to date. And also they've passed their Army physical fitness tests, because we're not going to be going through all that here. Now, when they arrive here, the purpose is to synchronize what is going to be happening from here on. Because the challenges that they're going to face is understanding the SOPs, the training principles and standards of the different forces that they're going to be working with going forward, and being able to stay focused and being able to achieve the mission, accomplish the mission. So we're going to be concentrating. We developed some training tracks that we're going to be concentrating on in phase 1, and those training tracks are everybody's going to be tested regardless of what country you're from, to see that you meet the standard that has been set. Now, after that standard has been met, then everybody proceeds to do take part in the culminating exercise here, and that is going to set the stage for phase 2, because when they get to phase 2, they will not have the opportunity to go through the same training anymore. It is assumed that all the troops that are going to phase 2 in the Bahamas are ready to hit the ground and operate. So that is the objective here. Now, we stand the opportunity to benefit tremendously from phase 1, because it provides opportunities for us to enhance and test our capabilities, also see how proficient our soldiers are, and police as well as the responses that Ms. Clarissa Stevens spoke about. Because for the hurricane season, we attach soldiers to work with NEMA, and they train with NEMA as well. So in a case of emergency, the soldiers are sent back to NEMA to work with them. So we have an opportunity to also test that. So like I said earlier, we're going to be concentrating on internal security, which is one of the training tracks that we developed. We also have counter illicit trafficking operations, advanced marksmanship. Advanced marksmanship is pretty much all to do with weaponries and how to handle the weapon safely and control it and do what needs to be done to achieve the mission. And for the first time, we have intelligence and cyber operations training, which is from another command, not Southcom. This is from Northcom. They're coming in for the first time, and they're throwing in that for us. So again, this is a key element here in that we are severely lacking and we are new to in Sankets and Nevis to develop the intelligence and also to take part in the cyber operations training, because there's cyber warfare going on out there.
Yeah.
And also command and control. Now, for every military operations, you have the tactical units, you have the operations units, you have the strategic units and stuff. So all this is put together in the command and control center. So you have the overarching objective there, you have the bird's eye view, you have a bigger picture, you're able to move your troops around to get the mission accomplished. So we're going to be concentrating on that training as well, to develop some senior level officers to be able to write operation orders, deliver operation orders, and monitor them, execute them, and also have the appropriate reporting systems in place, and the checks and the balances, and also be able to conduct the after action review where you look at it, what you did, able to identify where you went wrong and make notes so that you don't make the same mistake again. The same goes for the maritime side, because the Coast Guard is not out of this. So it's a multi-dimensional phase operation. The Coast Guard are going to be doing maritime law enforcement, that entails boarding of vessels and how to conduct searches and so forth. And also by just talking to the vessel captain, where they're going to be able to interrogate them just on the radio and be able to pick up certain things, and all the techniques, they're going to be learning that. They're going to also be doing some training in operations center, engineering administration, which is critical to a functioning Coast Guard, and boat operations as well. Unfortunately, this year we will not have the dive track in St. Kitts and Nevis. The dive track is going to be in the Bahamas. It's going to be held in the Bahamas. But we already have some individuals trained locally for that in the Coast Guard, and I think other agencies within the Federation. They're going to have the opportunity to take part in the dive track, which is going to be held in the Bahamas. So basically, that is just it. We're very optimistic that we will definitely gain from exercise Tradewinds.
Okay, what kind of engagement do the participants have with the local community?
Wow, that is a very good one. I was just discussing that with Miss Langley Stevens. We have in excess of 500 participants that will be here. They're going to be in hotels. They're going to eat. They're going to drink. They're going to be collecting rental cars. They're going to be associating with the members of the society. In fact, it is so good because like 3 years ago when we had Tradewinds, it's a good number of those persons that came 3 years ago are coming back, and it is acquaintances from 2015. They're going to visit them. There's one of the individuals who is a member of the U.S. Coast Guard. He's been here a few times, and I actually call him the mayor because he knows practically everywhere in St. Kitts, and he knows his way around. So everybody's going to benefit in the sense that there's going to be a lot of injects into the economy. They're going to go to the strip. They normally eat on the strip. All of them know cafes on the strip. They all rush there and they flood out cafes, and every other business. They go to Boozes, they go to Vibes, they go to Patsy's, they go to Bodies, and they actually come into town. They visit the food courts as well. Now souvenirs, the stores that sell souvenirs on the island are also going to be benefiting. I just got an email when you were speaking to Ms. Stevens. I got an email from a gentleman in Canada who's going to be coming, and one of the planning conferences, he asked me to get him some rum. I got him a case of rum. I had to take that whole case of rum to Colorado Springs. he's already telling me, hey, we're going to be back here, and his wife is already putting him on the alert that he has to bring back some vanilla rum. and that is the, that is the infiltration into the society that we don't see, but it does happen, because every planning conference that we go on, Ms. Stevens can testify to this. I'm almost overweight with rum, and when these guys come back, when they come down for any of the conferences, they stock up. They go to all the rum shops and they buy out. So there's economic benefits as well.
But I also want to add to that, because one of the components of the exercise insists that the participants must engage in a community-based activity. And in addition to that, there's a saying, all work and no play. Also, as a part of the planning, we have incorporated R&R Day, Rest and Relaxation Day, but we use it to allow for the participants to collectively explore our St. Kitts and Nevis, pick strategic historical sites. In 2015, we spent the entire day at Brimstone Hill, and you saw, the soldiers going up and down the hill. This year, we are trying to do a different approach to be able to expose them to our sister island on Nevis. And can you imagine 500 plus, because that do not include locals, venturing over to Nevis to be able to, get into the hot bath and tour the island and look at the museum and all of those things. So we try to make sure that there is that tourism-based component. We do not leave that out. So there is the exercising, there is that the official opening ceremony with that level of elegance and all of that, and then there is the actual training courses, there is the execution on the part of the HADR component, there are observers who come in just to observe specific aspects of the exercise, and then you have that social component and that community-based project. And so in my mind, there is a holistic approach in terms of exercise Tradewinds and what it brings to the region and the island, as the case may be. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, we would have had to do something very right in 2015 to get it back in such a short space of time, because we did it 20 years prior to getting it back in 2015. 20 years it took us to host Tradewinds again, and then in 2 short years we dropped the zero and we did it in 2 short years.
And to support what Ms. Langley Stevens just said, is a holistic approach. We want to share our culture with our participants, our guests. So, and we also want to get them into the communities, just like she mentioned. And the focus, what we're looking at this year is, last time the COMREL, that is a community relations activity that they took part in, was to do some beach cleanup. But this year, what I'm proposing to them is that we look at the different communities, maybe at least one community within every constituency, so that it will have a far-reaching aspect, like almost every community or every constituency, almost every village that you go into, we're doing something. The unfortunate thing is that we don't have that much time allotted for the community relations activity. It's just going to be like half a day, 5 hours at the most, because we still want to get them some time to get into town and be able to visit the shops and buy souvenirs, spend some money, drink some beers, and buy some rum. Because then later in the evening, that is the last day of the exercise I'm talking about now, the 12th, we're going to have the closing ceremony, and then we're going to have a social night for them.
Yeah,
where
the community activity I am speaking about, I know you're just stressing a lot on the rum drinking, I don't know why, but for example, engagement with schools.
Yeah, you say about the rum drinking, soldiers drink.
Yes.
So I have to stress that.
Okay,
And so
I
that,
suppose that
so all the bars can know, because in 2015 a lot of bars sold out and they couldn't sell more.
I see.
So that's why. So those who are listening
Getting
now,
them to stock up.
stock up.
The stock
Now,
up. Okay.
now some of the community relations activity that we looked at is, I was talking to someone who works within this culture department or people's empowerment department, and the suggestion was made that maybe we could get a group of soldiers to go into the schools. So we're going to, like, maybe all the primary schools have a team to go into all the primary schools. They can sit in the class and read to the students, give them some stories about where they come from, so that some background and so on, and then the students can ask questions and so on, and they have that interaction. We're looking at that is also being considered. We're also looking at, if the opportunity arises, that if there's any small project within schools or communities that could be taken up by this group, noting that we only have limited time, then they will do it. Be it paint, put a little fresh coat of paint on a building, or try to help to clean a churchyard, or maybe the Cardine home, or the community centers, clean it up and things like that. We want it to be far-reaching. Now, I'm not talking about St. Kitts alone. This is also the plan is to have everything happening simultaneously on St. Kitts and Nevis, because Nevis is part of the federation, so we want to go to all the communities so that they can see, and the soldiers are going to be in their uniforms, and people can ask them what the patches on their uniforms are, have that community relations interaction, and that is also going to help those soldiers to learn a bit more about our culture.
I think this is a very good juncture also, because when you're dealing with community relations, it's very sensitive, and sometimes we try to envision what the communities want without asking the communities, what are your priority needs and your areas of concern. And so I think this is an excellent juncture where the local organizing committee can make an appeal to any organization who would be or planning on having an event, a charity-based event, within the window of exercise Tradewinds, to be able to reach out to the LOC and make a proposal that this is what we are doing, this is something that we have calendared. Our membership will be able to partner with the LOC and the US military and other militaries from around the Caribbean to get this particular project, because if it's a project and it needs more hands, that is what we have to offer, more hands with that branding. And so it's an excellent opportunity. So I'm just making that appeal, that once there is an organization who feels that this appeal can work for them and that particular project that they would have identified, that they can reach out to us and we can start partnering, having those discussions.
Sure. Yes, and they can call the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force 466-9279 and ask for Captain Sutton, or call 466-7312 and you can ask for Corporal Davis, or call NEMA 466-5100 and ask for Miss Claricia Langley Stevens, and get these ideas to us. But critical to note is that all that we will be able to provide is the manpower, the hands.
Manpower.
That's it.
Now, how many of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force soldiers will be involved in the exercise this year?
For security reasons, I cannot give
you cannot give that number.
For security reasons, I cannot give you the numbers, and for security reasons, I cannot give you the number of police officers that will be involved. But a good number of us will be involved, because we are the hosts, and we will try to take maximum advantage of it. They don't have to fly our soldiers or police to go to another country to take part in the training. They are home. So we'll make allowances for that to ensure that we get the maximum benefit out of it.
Okay, when faced with, I know this is a training exercise, but when faced with the real thing, like for example, a disaster or land or maritime threat, a terrorist attack, what is really the process? What happens? Can you tell us?
Yes. Okay. If we're for disaster, natural disaster, that is NEMA.
That's right.
She's going to speak to that. But if we have like a man-made disaster, terrorist threat attack, where we're not praying for none, but the lead agency is the police, and the defense force will support the police. The police have certain units within the agency that have certain training. Equally, the defense force. So, like, say we have EOD experts, that is explosive ordnance disposal experts, and you want to ascertain that okay, a bomb went off. You want to ascertain that the area is safe before you can move in to try to rescue. You have to make sure that it's safe. There is no second device that is time to go off and things like that. So the national effort is coordinated to support whatever disaster, whatever situation arises. And if it is something that is coming from the Coast Guard, from the sea, then the Coast Guard is there to deal with it. The Coast Guard will intercept, and the Coast Guard is going to be able to communicate with the police and let the police know exactly what we do. We work together. They are like the sister agency. Same thing with the Customs and Excise Department. Okay, and everybody has a part to play. If you come in with goods and you're met on the sea by the Coast Guard, they escort you in. The intention is you will try to smuggle something in without declaring, right? Customs are going to have to, have their charges. It's going to come to bear. The police have their charges. The defense force don't charge no one. All we do is we facilitate that process. It's like they say a criminal needs to meet with his maker quick. We just facilitate the process.
Okay.
And in this case, it's funny how things work, because in the event that we declare an emergency or state of emergency as a result of being impacted by an earthquake or hurricane, a tsunami, as the case may be, NEMA is responsible for everybody. Defense Force answers to NEMA, police answers to NEMA, SKNIS answers to NEMA, and so the dimensions change completely. That is because we function as a coordinating agency, and in peacetime, I would like to say, in peacetime we do administrative functions, but when we switch to an emergency mode, we become very proactive and reactive in cases where we are allowed. One of the things that we try to ensure that we do not lose in the exercise Tradewinds planning process is to envision what are our realities, and we do not leave also our vulnerabilities out of the equation, because what it prepares us for is any eventuality, and then we can always fall back on the experiences. Okay, when we tested exercise Tradewinds, this is what happened and it didn't work so well, so this is what needs to be done. Our guiding doctrine is our national plan, our national disaster plan. We do not divert from it, because that is what it guides us on both islands. I think, interestingly enough, Don, I know that my colleagues on Nevis, they're very proud of this. This year for Tradewinds, we are going to be doing, for the first time, to be able to test our maritime response plan, a ferry boat incident. Unfortunately, you cannot observe it from the coast because it's going to be very far in the ocean, but it will be a real-time exercise, as in we will have one of our own local ferries being a part of the exercise. We will have role players, that's all about somewhere in the middle of the ocean, and we'll be able to test response from Coast Guard, but not only the St. Kitts and Nevis Coast Guard, but Coast Guards that will be in St. Kitts and Nevis for the exercise using their own respective ferries, and so, but they're playing into our plan, what our plan, would require.
Okay, the reason I asked the question about terrorist attack is that you turn on the TV, you hear a lot about North Korea, the United States, Syria. You hear about chemical attacks and all of that sort of a thing. Do you think, for example, at St. Kitts, that we are prepared in the eventuality of a chemical attack?
Yes, we are. By the way, let me just quickly, big up the lead planner for exercise Tradewinds. That's Doug Fitzgerald. He's just arrived, and Enrique Maldonado. They just arrived at the airport. These are the lead guys for exercise Tradewinds. They're here for the final planning conference. I just want to big them up. They've already tuned in on the radio. I told them we're going to be on the radio, so they're listening up to hear the advertisement for Tradewinds. So bigging them up. They already feeling at home. They're already happy that they're here. Now, talking about terrorist attack, St. Kitts is not immune.
Sorry.
The Caribbean region is not immune to terrorism. We think that it is terrorism is a foreigner to us, because when you hear it, there's a terrorist attack in the US, or there's a terrorist attack in Iraq and so on. But people travel. We interrelate. How many hours does it take you to get to the Middle East these days? Just a couple of hours. Now, also coming back home, you look at the schools that we have on the island. We have people from all over the world in St. Kitts and Nevis. You have American students on the island. And if the terrorists look at that they cannot get to the United States, there's what you call soft targets.
That's right.
So we're not going to sit on our hands and wait for something to happen. We have to. That's why we're doing capacity development in this regard, to deal with such, or to prevent such, when if we have to face it. Minding that you have some Caribbean nationals that went to fight in Syria with ISIS. At some point, these nationals are going to come back to the Caribbean. Then what? So we don't want to sit back and wait for them to act. We want to be proactive and deal with the threats as we perceive them. And Tradewinds provides opportunities for such. We are, like I said earlier, we're going to be focusing on national security, and a lot of the aspects of the national security training that we will be taking part in, that will be happening here, is to enhance the capabilities for such.
Sure. So yes, and I understand that a lot of it has to do with training, building capacity, being prepared, and so on. And you've been having this exercise annually for over 20 years now. Now, what I want to find out is, how has the training, the exercise, proved beneficial in a way that you can say, I can point to you, there was something, and this is where the training really kicked in, in a real life event.
Okay.
Can I touch that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, disaster, the hurricanes last year.
So the first time that our EOC, that is located at Limekeel, was ever activated was as a result of exercise Tradewinds in 2015. We didn't have any other opportunity to test the operations within the EOC, and that called for training of EOC officers leading up to the execution of the exercise. And last year when we went into the Atlantic hurricane season, dealing with 2 Category 5 storms. That is what prepared us in the EOC to be able to respond to the threat of a natural hazard, or 2 within a 2-week period. And so that training kicked in for a lot of the emergency ops officers from the various sectors that made up the EOC. I think the training that Tradewinds provided was able to set the tone and was able to identify a lot of the gaps that would have existed, and so we were able to iron those out over a 2-year period to be able to effectively respond to the emergencies caused as a result of the 2 Category 5 hurricanes. And so if that is not reality enough, because outside of Tradewinds we probably wouldn't have activated, we would have just had the building sitting there and waiting for something to happen. But while we waited, Tradewinds provided that avenue for us to train our officers, get them to understand their roles and responsibilities, and be able to start working with the entities to be able to get whatever they had to do done. And we sort of went live, not once but twice. We activated for Irma, we partially activated for Jose, and we went in full activation for, of course, an extended amount of hours for Maria. And so I believe that is as real as the practicality of what Exercise Tradewinds does for us as a country. It provides avenues that wouldn't ordinarily be recognized without a natural occurrence, or an occurrence as the case may be.
And also on the land side, the security side, recently we had the Safe Streets with the RSS. That is Tradewinds again, because Tradewinds allows for the opportunity to put a face to the name, to network, and know when you pick up that phone, you're calling someone, you know who you're calling, and the person who is answering knows who is speaking, and they respond. We have Safe Street here, everything went well. The result speaks for itself, and the everyday routine security operations that is conducted by the police and the defense force in support as a result of the best practices from exercises such as Tradewinds and other major exercises and trainings that we take part in. So the benefits cannot be understated. We have the anti-gang unit that is working now. It consists of police, soldiers, and custom officers. The effects that they're having on the criminal elements in the community cannot be overstated. Okay. And as well as the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is doing his part, because a lot of times you don't hear it, but a lot of times they intercept things on the seas, and of course they don't think they are the interceptors, but then the lead role is transferred to the police, where all the due processes of law will follow. So they're in the background, and we're not struggling to get all that information out, because we're not competing. We're working towards the same common purpose.
Right.
Make St. Kitts and Nevis safe
and resilient.
That is what we are doing.
Now, apart from NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency, you work, Tradewinds is Defense Forces, constabularies. Does Tradewinds work along with any other partner agencies?
Yes. We have not brought in a significant agency that is critical to disaster relief, which is fire and service. They are critical to disaster relief, and they will be working with us this year as well. They play a critical role when there's disaster. They go on the search and rescue and name it. And when you have oil spill, you have chemical hazardous material spill and things like that. The fire and rescue comes in. So fire and rescue is another critical agency that makes part of the stakeholders for Tradewinds. Health, everybody has a part to play. I mean, we can't say we single out one agency to say, oh, you have the most awesome responsibility for Tradewinds. Everybody has a part to play because each composite unit comes together to make a success of the whole exercise.
And that includes our national volunteers, because we couldn't achieve it, especially for the HADR component of Tradewinds. We could not achieve it without their involvement, because the HADR, because it's not a real occurrence, we have to get players to role play certain aspects of the exercise or the scenario, as the case may be. And so our national volunteer pool coming out of the agency, as well as from the Nevis Disaster Management Department, they're going to be the ones who really hit the pavement and bring some level of reality to the scenario, as the case may be. So we couldn't achieve what we wanted to achieve without the volunteer pool.
Right. Now how many countries will be involved this year in the exercise?
There'll be about 26 countries, participants from about 26 countries.
And what are some of those countries?
Namely, all the OECS countries, all the CARICOM countries, all the way from Bahamas to Guyana. You have Mexico, you have Belize, you have the United States, who is the chief sponsor. You have Canada, you have France, the Netherlands, as I mentioned, might be observers, but sometimes they take part as well. Australia might be a partner as well this year. I think Colombia has expressed interest in coming in, and so it's 26 countries will be present in St. Kitts and Nevis, represented in St. Kitts and Nevis, and it's going to be significant.
Yeah,
it's going to be significant. The opening ceremony, everyone is going to get an opportunity to see, all the countries that will be represented, because the plan is to have the opening ceremony at Warner Park, and we're going to have the troops march through town and back up to Camp Springfield, where they will be housed. We have the tent city that is going to be set up here. So they will march through town, people will be able to see them, and then they come back up here, and then we'll start the training. And as the training progresses, they're going to see us at different locations, moving around, doing things, not to inconvenience people. We're just trying to enhance our capabilities. But the police, as the time gets closer, the police is the traffic department, or whoever is going to be responsible is going to be able to come and say, hey, these areas, you might be affected a little bit today, but it's not to inconvenience people. Bear with us, and as we try to build our national capacities. So it's going to be good, and you have minimum of 15 persons from at least 15 persons from each of the member countries that will be here. So the economic input is going to be significant for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes, right.
If I may just add, one of the new components for the HADR this year has never been done before, but St. Kitts and Nevis insisted that we felt, coming out of our experiences from Irma Maria, that it was very important that our international support, which would be coming from Britain, Canada, and France, that there is that dialogue with our Foreign Affairs Office, as well as stakeholders who can benefit, such as IFRC, which is Red Cross affiliates, to have that briefing with these countries to help them to understand what our functionalities are and what triggers international response, for them to tell us what are some of the things they can offer to us as a country, and how they would have to, be processed, and who this information would have to be passed through to be able to activate that type of response. That type of conversation has not taken place. It's going to take place this year, because we feel that it is very necessary that we don't only do the running around and the playing and the jumping. We want people to understand there must be an education and awareness component, because it helps persons to truly recognize their role and responsibilities and how it can affect their ability to function. And so these 3 countries so far has agreed and have been scheduled to make those presentations as a part of the HADR component, to be able to support the disaster offices in the event that we are impacted. There can be that transition in terms of getting that international assistance into St. Kitts very quickly.
I think that one of the things that stand out for me with this thing is the collaboration.
Yes.
And the recognition that crime fighting cannot be done in isolation.
Absolutely.
That it is a collective. It is a collective, collective task.
Yes, absolutely.
And requires the collective abilities of so many groups and agencies within the society.
Yeah, exactly, and that is why we go even to the schools. That's why we have the community relations. We're not doing the enhancing our capabilities to keep our communities safe and exclude the communities. We have to engage them. We have to interact with them, and maybe some of those little children in primary school might develop affinity to be a member of the security forces just by mere interaction, or it might be able to influence the not so lucky or the weak and who cannot withstand peer pressure, and be able to guide them along the straight and the narrow.
Right.
So it's a collective effort, and we're not excluding anyone who might have a significant input to make.
Sure. Now, lady and gentlemen, we have to go to the phone lines and see if there are some callers.
I forgot to mention that Suriname is going to be part. I said as far south as Guyana.
Okay.
Suriname, Trinidad, and they're going to be part of it as well. Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, so we are going to open up the phone lines. The international number is 1718-577-2916. That's 1718-577-2916. And the local number is 465-2555. That's 465-2555. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Leroy.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to you, 2 very special, important guests, that is Captain Sutton and Lady Stevens. I want to congratulate St. Kitts Navy Defense Force Coast Guard and NEMO for having Tradewinds 2018 in the Federation. So far, so good. I am impressed. Question for you, Captain Sutton. We normally hear about national security and the security forces in St. Kitts Nevis. Can you tell me, or the people, who or what agencies are involved in national security, and what are their purpose? Because you see, Captain Sutton, you spoke about internal security, which I found to be very interesting. And then you went on to speak about borders, drugs, vessels, airports. Can you name those agencies who are involved in our national security, because sometimes people understand it to be the police and the army. But I consider myself to be well read as it relates to the statute. And so I believe that our people needs to be better educated. Because, for example, you got ports, you have agriculture and quarantine, you have port health. You hardly hear about those. Those are a part of your national security system. And the general public ought to know of that. You said something about going to sea. And here's where I'm going to have a little difference with you, Captain Sutton, because the territorial waters, they are customs waters. And when you intercept anything there, you must first call the customs and let them deal with the police. You must not go to the police directly. So I hope you will correct that. For Ms. Stevens now. Ms. Stevens,
yes,
I want to congratulate you, because I think you are doing a fantastic job thus far since Mr. Herbert was left. But there's one thing you did not mention, because when all systems are down in terms of communication, there's some people called ham radio operators who then take over because they are up and running. Are they not critical and important to the system of NEMA? Are they not? Thank you much.
Thank you for your call. Okay. You can respond.
Ladies first, thank you. So I want to thank the caller for making the observation. But it is not that the ham radios weren't important. I just didn't list everyone. But I want to assure not only the caller but everyone that the Ham Radio Society of St. Kitts and Nevis are one of our major partners. In fact, when we are impacted or under threat, one of the first set of persons who are asked to report to the agency to be able to man our own radio room are the hams. And there are persons who, from the Ham Radio Society, would have been engaged in several aspects of training as a part of NEMA's training programs. And so I want to assure the populace that there is an excellent partnership with the agency, and not only the agency but on Nevis and DMD with the Ham Radio Society. And I do agree that when modern technology fails, we resort to the old-fashioned ham radio, and NEMA has both aspects of radio capability. We are in constant communication with our region, our regional partners and stakeholders using the ham radio. So I want to assure them that that is fully operational and functional and in use.
Okay. Yes, to the questions that the caller asked, actually the caller pretty much answered all the questions. He shed a light. But what I want to stress is that, and I mentioned it in one of my presentations here, that we are, no one agency is in a struggle for dominance against the other. The key words here is collaboration, cooperation, and support. We're working towards the same common purpose to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis is safe for one and all. And we will continue to work together in that regard.
Oh, okay, now, Captain Coyote, how is Tradewinds financed?
Okay. That's the main part. When I gave you the details on what Tradewinds is, I mentioned Tradewinds is phase 1 is a St. Christopher and Nevis government approved exercise. He is a chairman of Joint Chief of Staffs, directed, and U.S. Southern Command sponsored. So it is sponsored by the United States Southern Command. Mainly, there are so many different agencies within the U.S. government that fall into place, who is sponsoring what and so forth. And I don't really think that detail is necessary for the public because it is sponsored. However, there are certain aspects of Tradewinds that will not be sponsored by the U.S. government. And critical to note is that the hospitality aspect of Tradewinds, where we will be welcoming our guests and our participants, mainly those aspects will have to be sponsored by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. That is the opening and the closing ceremony. Some aspect of the community relations, they're going to provide the manpower, that is their support, and also the cultural and the social event where we showcase our cuisine, our traditions, the folklore, and name it, so that they can truly enjoy St. Kitts, and have most of those participants of Tradewinds Phase 1 in St. Kitts and Nevis want to come back on vacation. That is the whole purpose. So I don't know if I answered your question. That is where that is the aspect.
The thing is, Tradewinds, the exercise is just as much about regional security,
yes,
as it is about American security.
Yes.
So in other words, the US has sponsored this trading exercise, or has a major part in it, because they're interested in drugs and land and maritime threats not reaching their borders.
Yes.
But we are concerned in terms of the Tradewinds and the exercise that these things do not reach our borders as well.
That's right.
And part of the problem, I think, that we have, and the challenge that we have, is that we have very open seas and porous borders. And that is why the Caribbean Sea is being used as a transshipment point for drugs on its way, whether to Latin America or to North America.
Or to Europe.
Or to Europe.
And that is true. That is true. And that's why I say, the overarching aim of Exercise Tradewinds is to improve cooperation, interoperability of partner nations in responding to security threats and disasters, and in accordance with...
We have a caller. Working for you, good afternoon.
Les Roy, I'm back, and I won't be confrontational, but Captain Sutton skirted around what I asked. And that is not good, Captain Sutton. I'm going to give you a perfect example. The United States presently now have sent the home guards, the military, to the Mexican border. The border are controlled by Customs and Border Protection. The President made it abundantly clear they are there to assist and support. I directly ask you, name for me some of these agencies, because it goes beyond the police and the army, and most of the time people believe that internal security are just made up of the army and the police. That's all I simply ask, Captain. They're much more than the army and the police, but seldomly they are being named. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay. Fine.
Yes, as I was saying...
You're free to respond.
Yes. Also, let me finish what was my response. So it is the overarching aim of Tradewinds is to improve cooperation and interoperability between different agencies within the country and all the partner nations.
Yes.
In responding to security threats, either at home or in the region, disaster at home or in the region, in accordance with local laws and regional treaties, and also in sync with the security assistance, such as the Caribbean Security Initiative. Okay, so like what you said, falls in. I mean, yes, the U.S. wants. The Caribbean is the backyard of the United States. If a hurricane affects the Caribbean, it's most likely going to affect the United States as well. So that is it. Now, in response to the caller, I don't want to call his name, the caller. He mentioned he used the same words, collaboration and support, just like I said, but naming the agencies. The United States laws and agencies or their ambits is different from as we have it in St. Kitts. As we have it in St. Kitts and Nevis, those agencies that make up national security, as far as I know it, is the police, which is the lead, the defense force, fire, and prison. And that's it. That's how they have it. Custom and exercise falls under the Ministry of Finance, I suppose. But there's an arm of the Customs Department, which is the enforcement, that is being utilized, trying to enhance their capabilities and the training as well to do certain things within their areas of responsibilities. And most
I think
of the
NEMA falls on the
NEMA, National Security.
National Security.
Yes, NEMA, National Security.
And I think that the National Drug and Council and the Secretary, all of those fall on the National Security.
Yeah.
And if I were to agree with the caller, I suppose he was trying to see all those agencies that have a key role to play national security. Because national security is not just the police.
No, it's not just the police.
And the defense force.
But you see, everybody has a significant role to play. And you play your part when it comes for you to play your part. The prison, they have their part to play. It is defined. Fire have their part to play. NEMA, they have their part to play.
And each individual, each citizen and resident in St. Kitts and Nevis has his or her part to play
as well
in national security.
National security is the responsibility of every member of the country. So it's not regardless of all the agencies. Because they say you see something, say something. You have to help the police, and that's why we did all the community outreach and so forth. I don't believe that it is significant to put it on paper, but is it really relevant in the aspect of crime fighting? You have to reach out to everybody. The church group have a part to play. The children's home have a part to play. The schools have a part to play. Has a part to play, like you rightly said.
Yeah.
So
okay, we're out of time, but
we play our part when the time comes. We support the police. It is our mandate to support the police, and it's also our mandate to support NEMA in times of natural disaster.
Sure.
And we do it very well.
Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up this program?
Yes, I surely would. I think it would be remiss of myself and the chair to not acknowledge. I know we identified the local organizing committee, but I wish to acknowledge the contribution that each member of this committee is making to the success of Exercise Tradewinds 2018. Similar, I think I'm going to echo what has already been echoed, that each entity bring a unique level of support, expertise, and experience towards the planning and execution of this exercise. It's a very hard-working committee. We are making great strides, because I don't believe that we would have had this healthy conversation and discussion today if it wasn't for the contributions made by the respective members of the LOC. So I want to thank the management of all of the institutions who make up the LOC, because it's a lot of work to plan, and it's even more work to execute. But I think the realization of a successful exercise is dependent on the contribution of all of our partners, and for that we're entirely grateful, and we want to thank them. We're just the mouthpiece. Everybody else, they're the muscle and the brain of the operation. So we want to recognize your contributions and to thank you for giving us this opportunity to be able to share with the nation that we are yet again hosting Exercise Tradewinds, something that we did with a lot of pride in 2015, and I think we would have learned our lessons, and we are going to enhance on our mode of delivery, but staying true to what our realities could be in the event that something really does occur on St. Kitts and Nevis. We try not to divert too much, so we're very grateful for the opportunity.
Captain Sutton, any parting words?
I think Miss Langley Stevens, said it all.
Okay.
So I don't want to just repeat what she just said.
Mrs. Langley Stevens.
Thank you.
Captain Sutton, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to another edition of Working for You. Those of you who listen to today's program, we want to thank you very much for tuning in, and to our sole caller, we thank you very much for your contribution. Next week, we will be back with another Working for You program. I am Les Roy Williams, your host. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Working for You. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Les Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.